Hey friends, thanks for checking out this video where I'm going to be taking a look at the box office results for this past weekend, September 26th through the 28th. And before I actually get into the numbers of this past weekend, I actually ran across an article when I was looking up the numbers for this weekend, and it was an article from Screen Rant, and the article is titled, "Will the Box Office Ever Recover? Hollywood's Most Accurate Forecasters Weigh In." And it's a pretty lengthy article, but basically it asks the question, will the box office ever bounce back from where it was at the pre-pandemic times? For example, 2018 and 2019 were a couple of the highest grossing years. So, will we ever get back to that? What are the forecasters calling for? And this article goes through and discusses where the box office grosses have been, the highs of around 12, 13 billion a year, and where they would like to see it sitting at 8 or 9 billion, and we're lagging behind. And once again, the current year that we're in this year is also not looking as bright as they had once hoped. And they're not really seeing a brighter forecast for next year. And that's kind of what makes it a little bit scary because the product is out there. The movies are being released. It's just there are a lot of duds out there and a lot of movies that underperform, a lot of movies that audiences just generally ignore. And at the end of the year here, I'll probably be doing a couple of videos where I take a look at some of those movies, especially those that are kind of forgotten. They flopped, but they were actually pretty good movies. There's a lot of good movies out there that, it's not a lack of product thing that is harming the box office industry right now, or the the movie industry right now. It really is something even more than that. And I think what it really might even be personally, and this article doesn't really go into it, but I think that maybe perhaps the prices need to start coming down. That the prices have actually gotten to the point where most people, when they have their disposable income, going to the movies is really, really expensive, especially if you have a family. A family of four could easily spend $100 for a matinee, and especially an evening show at a theater. So, perhaps that's what they need to look at. Perhaps lowering the ticket prices will drive more people to the theater. What about the business from this past weekend? Well, the business from this past weekend was down a little bit, off about 14 million or so from last year. So a little bit slower than last year. And real quick, if you enjoy talking about movies, I invite you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel, as well as like and share this video. I know that they're only small clicks for you, but they really do mean the world to me, and I truly, truly do appreciate every single click that I receive. One battle after another was the major release this week. That's the new movie with Leonardo Decaprio. Paul Thomas Anderson directed this movie. It's supposed to be sort of a John Wick type movie, a big action movie, and there was really high hopes behind this. I had even read some initial articles where they were predicting that this movie could end up breaking 100 million its opening weekend, and that the buzz around it was really good, and the buzz is really good. The reviews came in, it's sitting at, I believe, right around a 95% Rotten Tomatoes score. The audiences, I believe, rated it with an A cinema score. So critics love it, audiences love it. It is a longer movie, it is a 3 hour movie, and perhaps that affected its opening weekend gross, but it did not come anywhere near 100 million for its opening weekend. But it did earn the top spot, first place. One battle after another brought in 22.4 million in its opening weekend. Now, the thing about the movie is, though, that it's going to have a really hard time making a profit because it's a rather expensive movie. The movie itself costs right around 130 million. So the break even on the movie on one battle after another is right around 300 million. So it's going to be really tough. And of course, you have the international box office to consider. So, once you add those in, the movie probably brought in here in its opening weekend right around 50 million, maybe 60 million, but that's quite a ways from 300. So, will One Battle After Another, which has really, really excellent critical reviews, audience reviews, will that garner enough word of mouth for One Battle After Another to have legs to leg it out, to be able to make a profit, which is really going to, it's going to have to pretty much play probably through the end of the year. Paul Thomas Anderson's biggest gross to date was 76.4 million, so right around 75, 80 million, and that was for There Will Be Blood. Leonardo DiCaprio's last movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, ended up grossing 158 million globally. But of course, even that gross is nowhere close to the 300 million that's going to be necessary for One Battle After Another. Now, in second place is a movie that kind of came out of nowhere for me, and I guess it's understandable because it's a movie that, as I have read now, is geared toward preschoolers, and it's called Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. It did bring in 13.7 million, so a pretty strong showing for a movie that really has a very definite target demographic of kind of a sort of a tiny target demographic, you could say. But almost 14 million opening weekend. Picked a really good weekend to open this movie. That's kind of what I see in this figure. 3,500 screens, almost a $4,000 per screen average. A pretty respectable showing. Production budget of only 32 million. So if it makes right around a 70 million mark, 80 million, it will probably make back that will probably be right around its break even point. I feel this movie has a really solid shot at hitting its break even point and even making a profit. There are signs that this movie could actually leg it out already. Look at the reviews, A+ cinema score. The kids that have seen it absolutely love this movie. So it is hitting its target audience. Its target audience loves it. There isn't a whole lot of competition out there. And even next week, there isn't any family competition re entering the market that is going to harm the Gabby's Dollhouse gross, I don't think. So I actually expect this movie to take a rather small decrease next week. But let's see how this one plays out. Now, in third place is a sleeper, a real sleeper. The anime movie Demon Slayer Infinity Castle, actually in its third week of release, is in third place. This movie has raked in $600 million. This is a major, major blockbuster. So it may be a sleeper here in America, but globally, Infinity Castle is a blockbuster. Then in fourth place, a movie that just keeps hanging around, The Conjuring Last Rites, brings in another 7 million, 44% from last weekend. But to date has brought in 162 million, just shy of 162 million domestically, but globally over 400 million, 435 million to be precise. So another Conjuring movie that has become a blockbuster. I know it says Last Rites in its title, but I'm kind of feeling that this is a Friday the 13th final chapter situation where this movie has made so much money There is no way that this studio is just going to end this franchise with this movie. So I don't think Last Rites is going to be the last movie. Then in fifth, a major, major disappointment, but not a real big surprise for me personally. And that is The Strangers Chapter 2, opening to just under 6 million. Now, keep in mind, The Strangers Chapter 1 just last year opened to $12 million. So, half as much in this opening weekend. This movie is bombing. There's a guaranteed part 3. I believe Rennie Harlan has already filmed and is probably even in post production, maybe even in the can. Who knows? But as far as I know, they are going to move ahead with Chapter 3, even though Chapter 2 received scathing reviews. I actually watched a couple of my fellow YouTube critics here, their reviews on The Strangers, and it's looking ugly. And the audience, so the critics, I mean, it's at like a 12% Rotten Tomatoes right now. The cinema score is like a C minus. So audiences are kind of repelled by this movie. I don't know how much of an audience is going to be left when part 3 or chapter 3 comes out next year, I believe. And keep in mind, the production budget is 9 million. So even though it only brought in 6 million, it's almost with that kind of a budget guaranteed to make money. All right, so like I said last year, uh, we hit around 84. The top 10 hit around 84 million. This year's top 10 only took in 70 million, so we were off 14 million from last year. So not an incredible week. I think if One Battle After Another had performed just a little bit better, we could have actually beaten last year, but it just wasn't in the cards. You know, it is when you consider, and I love AMC, but AMC is the biggest theater chain there is. And when you consider that One Battle After Another is 3 hours long, and they have trailers that, unless it's changed, I believe run 25 to 30 minutes still. You know, you're asking your patrons to be there in that theater, make that commitment for 3.5 hours. That is a long time to be glued to a theater seat. So, you know, I think that there were things about the movie that no matter how great it is and how great the reception was, and it was in fact incredible, that it already had that going against it. So perhaps that's a lesson, getting back to that article that I was talking about in the beginning. Perhaps that's kind of something to look at and to consider in trying to get more butts in the seats. There has to be a way. I want to see it succeed personally. I love movie theaters. I'm one of those people that I can't imagine the thought of not having movie theaters around to be able to go to. And I know that there are a lot of people out there like me, because while I haven't hit the numbers yet and will one day, I'm confident of that. But I see how many people watch the movie related videos here on YouTube. Movie theaters are just something that have always been with me. They've been my escape. When I was bullied at school, you know, on the weekends, I was able to go into this dark room, the lights go out, nobody knew I was in there. I could just sit in peace with my popcorn, my pop, my box of Juji fruits, and just watching whatever double feature I had happened to pay $2 for, and and just escape from whatever was going on in my life there. And hopefully, the studios are taking it seriously enough because there's been some success stories. You look at Weapons from this year or Sinners. Now, Sinners was a major studio backing, but what Zach Krager has done, especially with Weapons, and now I hear he's doing an Aunt Gladys prequel. So really looking forward to that because Weapons was a 5-star rated movie and has done over 100 million. It is in the $100 million club for this year and is quite the sleeper hit in itself. So there have been success stories. Before I go this week, though, I do want to talk about the biggest losers, and there were two of them, and they are the openers from last week, which underperformed last week. They took major drops this week. I'm talking about A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, which dropped 62% this week, and the movie Him, the sports horror film, which dropped an incredible 72.5% this week in its second week. That movie is a horror bomb. There are a few this year. A real big disappointment, I'm sure, even for Jordan Peele, even though he only produced it. But his name was definitely a major focal point in the trailers. So it kind of is a little bit bruising to him as well. All right, so next week I'm not really seeing much of an improvement from the box office, even though we're looking at the first weekend of October, Halloween season. We do have a horror film, Bone Lake, coming out, as well as The Rock's wrestling movie, The Smashing Machine, which was getting some Oscar buzz early on, but then I heard this movie actually opened up at a festival, and the early reviews coming out have not been that glowing. And so now it appears that The Rock is not as much of an Oscar hopeful, and neither is this movie. So I'm guessing that the gross this next weekend is pretty much going to mirror the grosses from this. That's it for the box office results for this past weekend. I really appreciate you being here with me. And if you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, if you stayed here this far anyways, I hope you did. Please subscribe to my channel as well as like and share. I really do appreciate it. And if you do wish to support me even further as well as receiving a ton of rewards, be sure to check out our Patreon page. And I say our Patreon page because that's the Patreon page that I share with my husband Santo, because we have a second channel, Movie Haunts, which we just started together, and we'll be doing reaction videos, reviews, specialty videos, sharing our love of horror films. And it will be a horror centric channel, so all things horror, unlike this channel where I do box office grosses, talk about Academy Award movies, and pretty much every other genre outside of horror. So since horror is my favorite genre of all time, I've pretty much dedicated a whole separate channel to that, and I am more than honored that Santo has agreed to do that channel with me. So if you join our Patreon, you'll get benefits from both channels. So there's two channels, one Patreon. All right, so anyways, I really do appreciate you being here with me, and I look forward to talking to you next time. And for now, that's a wrap.